Okay, DC's The Suicide Squad. Not Suicide Squad. That was the first film. The Suicide Squad. This is the sequel. It's written and directed by James Gunn, who was the writer and director of the Guardians of the Galaxy movies. And it covers the return of the career criminals that are used by the US to undertake near impossible missions. It has a decent cast, including Idris Elba, Joel Kinnaman, John Cena, who actually plays he plays the part of the Fool really well. I was quite impressed with John Cena, and of course you've got Margot Robbie returns as Harley Quinn, and the group do work really well together. Actually, I mean they've got a good chemistry going on between them. It's just over 2 hours long, and the plot is as straightforward as it comes. You know, it's a Black Ops mission using a bunch of expendable soldiers, so the US can deny all knowledge of anything if it goes tits up, and they normally do in these films. Only a few characters return from the first Suicide Squad movie, and but Gunn, in his writing, and the actors who portray him have actually managed to recapture all the same personality and character traits that they had from the first film, which was actually quite impressive. But the main character in the movie, or probably the main character, is Bloodsport, played by Idris Elba. He plays the part well, but what I found was a bit disappointing was that the motivation for his character during the movie is his young daughter. And the reason why I found this disappointing was because that's exactly the same motivation they used in the first movie for the main character then. I mean, the main character being Will Smith as Deadshot. Again, his motivation was his younger daughter. So I found this a bit lazy on the part of Gunn, that they've just gone with the same motivation, not tried to create something else. But yeah, I'm probably just nitpicking on this. I mean, as you'd expect, it's action packed, but it does contain an awful lot of graphic violence and gore, and there's also strong language in it as well. There's a lot of use of a certain four-letter word beginning with F. You know this, you know the one. It starts with F and ends with uck. So yeah, it's certainly not for children, because the amount of violence in it and foul language. I mean, you wouldn't want your kids watching this. But it also contains a lot of humour. There's probably as much humour in it than what there is action. And even though this is a part of the DC universe and is supposed to take place in the same universe as Man of Steel, Wonder Woman, and Justice League. Oh, and I mean the Zack Snyder Justice League version, not the other version. Let's just not go there. So even though it's supposed to take place in the same universe, it's sort of hard to see it as a part of it. I mean, all the other DC movies have been quite serious with a little bit of humour thrown in. But as I've said, this one, it has just as much humour as what there is action. So I don't think it really knows if it wants to be a comedy or an action film. I mean, most action films, in their action sequences, use music that's sort of dark and foreboding to create tension in the action. This does the opposite. I mean, even though the action sequences do contain a lot of violence. I mean, you've got people being beheaded, ripped apart, losing limbs, being run through, having their faces blown off. All nice stuff. The music it uses actually makes it almost light-hearted, like you would expect from a comedy. So as I said, it's hard to see it as part of the actual DC universe. But then again, saying that, and don't get me wrong, I like the way that like Marvel have got their Marvel universe and DC got the DC universe. So all these films, like all the heroes in them coexist in the same world. I think when you watch these individual movies, you do have to sort of try and distance it from the universe it's supposed to be set in, because if you don't, it does pose too many questions. Take the first Suicide Squad movie, for example. I mean, when it was all kicking off and the fate of the world was at stake, Why was it left up to a bunch of criminals to go and save it? I mean, you can excuse Superman for this because he was dead at the time. But where was Wonder Woman and Batman? Why weren't they turning up? It just doesn't make sense. I mean, like, take Spider-Man Far From Home as well. I mean, at the climax of that movie, Mysterio is looking at the illusion he's created, and he says something along the lines of, "Yes, now that's a Avengers level threat." So where were the Avengers on their holidays? Why weren't they turning up? Why was it left to poor little Peter to go spinning around trying to save it? Lazy. But maybe that's what Gunn's tried to do in this. Maybe he's tried to add the humour in to distance it from the rest of the universe. So you look at it as its own film. I doubt it, but maybe. I mean, but if you remember, Gunn, wrote and directed all the Guardians of the Galaxy movies, and if you've seen them, you'll know that all the action sequences in them are made out to be light-hearted. So I think this is probably just the way the director works. But yeah, I mean, but the movie flows quite well. I mean, and where it's a sequel, there's no need to explain who and what the Suicide Squad are, so you can go straight into the action, and which it does. And the action sequences are really well made, and they're evenly spaced out throughout the movie as well, so you don't get like a lull in the movie. But overall, so it's a decent film. It's enjoyable to watch. Say good special effects, good action sequences, decent cast, decent acting, straightforward plot line. There's no confusion plot lines. You don't have to really be on your game, concentrate on watching it. But as I said, not for kids. It's not for kids. So overall, I'm going to give it 3 Stay Puffs out of 5. But this is always just my opinion. Watch it yourself, make up your own mind, and let me know what you think in the comments. And also, if there's anything particular you would like me to review, drop that in the comments too. But within reason, though. I'm not going to go watching something depraved or anything. I'm not watching a smut movie or anything like that. But anyway, yeah. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.